So we continue our lesson today in chapter 8, and we are learning about the dynasties of China, and we are in section 1, a golden age of prosperity. And previously we learned about the reunification under the Sui dynasty after its collapse, after the rule and reign of the Han dynasty for maybe 400 years. China was in civil war, fighting against itself. And the Sui dynasty, through the leadership of Wendy and his son, they were able to reunify China. But because of their lavish lifestyle and projects that are expensive, and at the same time, because of famine, eventually the Sui dynasty collapsed as well. But before we continue to the other dynasties, it is important for us to learn about an important religion in China, which is Buddhism. And today we'll talk about the spread of Buddhism. And it is in section 1.2, pages 214 to 215. Okay, textbooks ready? Or go to our website, Launch Clever, and log into Cengage Learning with your student account and password. And from the left side, it's Unit 4 and Chapter 8, Section 1, Lesson 2. Or you can go straight to pages 214 to 215. This chapter's essential question is, what legacy did China leave to the modern world? And the objective of this lesson is to describe why Buddhism took a strong hold in China, why it's an important religion, given that it is not from China, it's from India. So the Chinese embraced both Buddhism as a popular religion and Confucianism as a moral philosophy. So in this lesson, we will compare these two belief systems and their influence on early China. So this lesson has two parts. The first part is Buddhism in China, and the second part is impact on Confucianism. Reviewing from the previous lesson, so the collapse of the Han dynasty in AD 220 plunged China into chaos for 400 years. And in such troubled times, many Chinese turned from the practical belief system known as Confucianism to a new and more spiritual religion, which is Buddhism. Buddhism is not from China, so it was based on an understanding of life founded by Siddhartha Gautama in India around 500 BC. According to his teachings, that in order for a person to have a good life, this person needs to know the Four Noble Truths. And these noble truths are the following: life is full of suffering. Next, he teaches that the cause of suffering is desire and ignorance. And the third one, to end the cycle of desire, is to end suffering. And finally, one can be free of desires by following the Eightfold Path. Now, this path promoted balanced life in which the sum of a person's deeds or karma results in reincarnation or rebirth into another life. Through good karma over successive lifetimes, a person could reach the state of nirvana at the end of the reincarnation and the suffering of life. During the difficult times of civil war and famine, Buddhism provided comfort to a lot of people, and it offered a clear path beyond suffering. So the Buddhist texts were translated and the Buddhist practices were adapted into a distinctive Chinese form, which became very popular among all classes of people. Buddhism received tolerance and even support from the Emperor Wendy, and eventually it spread rapidly across the east and southeast areas of Asia, especially in Korea and Japan. Before Buddhism in China, Confucianism is a more popular teaching. But after a tumultuous period during the Civil War and it ended, Confucianism returned by the 600s. Because of its teaching, the government reintroduced traditional Confucian-style, tests for civil service. In order for a person to work to the government, this person need to take this civil service. So Confucian principles of respect, responsibility, loyalty, and duty to the family and the state became popular once again. Well, the idea, of course, is for the government to easily lead or manage or govern, people because of the teachings of Confucianism. So it works well for them. So in contrast, Buddhism encouraged moral behavior but played down the importance of obedience to outside authority in favor of inner guidance. Meaning, if the government is telling you to do something against your conscience, Buddhism is not supporting this. So they are not just submitting to any authority without, the use of conscience. Taoism, which is another religion, so the three major religions in China, Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. So Taoism, which emphasized our essential unity with nature, also had a strong following. So these three competing belief systems became interwoven. So Confucianism, concerned with earthly duty, influenced the religious spirituality of Buddhism and Taoism. So because of this, the combination of these three major religions and belief system, as a result, Confucianism once more emerged as an important part of the Chinese society because of its teaching about submission and respect and loyalty. So these are, these are essential teachings that the government favors. Okay, so as for the review and assess questions, the first one, reading check. After the collapse of the Han Dynasty, why did many Chinese turn to Buddhism? What are their motivations? And number two, sequence events. How was Buddhism first introduced in China? And number three, compare and contrast. How do the main principles of Confucianism and Buddhism differ? Now go back to Google Classroom and open the review and assess assignment and answer these questions that I just read and fill up all the important information, last name, first name, etc. And the key vocab is reincarnation. Again, I would like to emphasize that in order for you to get a full credit, you need to answer the questions correctly and use your own words and write incomplete sentences. So those are the things that, the elements that will give you a full credit. Okay, so that's our lesson for today. Section 1, Lesson 2, The Spread of Buddhism. And go ahead, complete the review and assess assignment.